Work safety at iron and aluminium joinery. The operations used the most at the iron and aluminium joinery production are cutting profiles, bending, punching, oiling, clinching, painting and assembling. The procedures mentioned in the other parts of this module haven't been included in this part. The working area where the production or assembly is performed should be clean and tidy. There mustn't be any unnecessary boxes of paint and thinner on the ground. Otherwise, the employees can stumble the untidy materials on the ground and fall down. Or they can slip and injure themselves. In order to avoid the slipping risk, the paint and fluids poured on the ground should be cleaned. Against the possibility of fire, qualified and enough number of fire tubes should exist in the working area. The angle of the spiral grinding shouldn't be changed while cutting to avoid getting cut, smashing and loss of limb because of the explosion of spiral grinding during the usage of the electrical hand spiral. The material mustn't be hit hard, and the spiral grindings eroded much should be changed. Not to be shocked, the cables and their connections should be strong and insulated. Transparent glasses should be absolutely used in order to avoid entering substances into the eyes. The machines without protecting cases mustn't be used not to have cutting and loss of limb. You must be careful while using the electric hand drill to avoid hand impingement. The cables and their connections should be strong and insulated not to be shocked. Transparent glasses should be absolutely used in order to avoid entering substances into the eyes. It mustn't be forgotten that vibration gives persistent damages to the human body. The people who work with these sorts of devices should work in shift. Ear protector must be used for the noise not to cause hearing loss. Maximum care should be taken while working by these types of tools not to have hitting, wrenching, and cutting at the usage of non-electric hand tools. In the working area, the insulated and qualified section cable should be used to avoid getting shocked or fire danger, and cable ends mustn't be opened. The damaged cable or the insulation of which is broken down should be replaced by the new one. Qualified power panel must be used. Bare cable connections shouldn't be made, and qualified plug and jack must be used instead of it. Panels, lugs and jacks ought to be grounded. The electric cables mustn't be left untidy on the ground in order to decrease the risk of stumbling and falling down. While working on the scaffold, the rules of working on the scaffold must be obeyed. Full body protective safety belt and the other PPEs should be used everywhere, having risk of falling down. While moving the scaffold to another place, swing drift, all the materials on the scaffold ought to be taken off before the moving operation. And the people who work in the scaffold carrying area, excluding the ones assigned to carry, should be taken out of the region. A safety ladder should be used during the joinery assembly. The ladder using rules must be obeyed, and PPEs should be used. While working high by using tripod scaffold, the workers working on the scaffold should tie their full protective safety belts to a safe and strong place, and they ought to wear helmet. If mastic is used during the assembly, coveralls should be worn to avoid the mastics touching to the bare skin, and gloves must also be used. During the assembly, maximum care should be taken against the risks of hand-foot jamming, material fitting, material falling, and getting shocked. While carrying materials by hand, you can stumble and fall down. The material getting carried can cut our skin or sting. When the material falls down, hand-foot jamming and squashing can occur. If the load is heavy, and convenient lifting and carrying method isn't used, it shall give permanent damages to body joints. In order to avoid these risks, the heavy and bulky loads should be carried by the transporting vehicles, and PPEs must be used. While unloading the materials from the vehicle, material can fall on the floor or on the workers working there. Hence, the worker can have cutting, wrench or squashing. In order to avoid it, you must be careful while loading or unloading materials, and the materials should be lifted and lowered safely. In order to minimize the possible work accidents at iron and aluminium joinery, In addition to the ISGE measures listed above during assembly, it is very important to use the machines which are used to produce the iron and aluminium joineries according to the using instructions. The instructions of the machines which are often used at the iron and aluminium joinery have been given as follows. Directions of upcut shear. Don't work at the machines without permission. Don't operate the machine when the front safety shield is removed. Be careful that the cutting space of the machine is adjusted according to the thickness of the sheet you will cut. Don't cut the parts which are thicker than 4 millimeters. Don't touch the moving parts while the machine is operating. While cutting, don't insert your fingers through the front shield. Use the emergent stop button in emergency. Be careful that there is nobody behind the machine while operating. Turn off the machine when you completed your work. Won't leave parts on the machine. Directions of using the bending presses. Check the connection screws before operating the machine. Keep yourself away from the bending ties while working at the machine. Choose the suitable mold according to the bending you will carry out. Do the mold adjustments. Don't perform the bending of the parts cut by flame. Oil the molds while bending. Adjust the space of bending according to the thickness of the material that will be bent. Don't insert your hands and arms between the two molds while working. Don't deal with the other people and work while working at the machine. Control the oil level of the machine before bending. Turn off the machine when you have completed your work. Directions of using special metal clamping machine. Keep your working area tidy. Don't approach any point of your body to the working area. Be careful that the sleeves of your overalls aren't long, the front of it is closed, and your necktie isn't outside. Don't deal with the other people and work while working at the machine. Don't hit on the bending jaws with hard object. Don't bend the parts longer than 1,310 millimeters and thicker than 1.5 millimeters. Check the bending angle while bending. Don't smooth the bent parts, compressing them between the jaws. Clean the machine when you completed your work. Directions for use of buzz saw and bench profile cutting. Check if the saw has got any damages like broken or cracked teeth, etc. Do the resistance adjustment according to the part you will cut. Don't work without glasses. Don't work without gloves. Be careful that your gloves are eligible for the measure of your hands and it is close fit to your hands. Don't measure the size while the saw is operating. Don't play with the adjustments of the saw while the saw is operating. While cutting with the saw, be careful that it is at the position of triangle on the second phase. Don't perform cutting when it is at the position of star at the first phase. While cutting, be careful that there aren't any materials to be able to blaze around the machine like oakum, paper, etc. Don't cut the full materials on the saw. Don't hold the cut to sides of the parts cut with bare hands. Don't use nogs to stop the saw bleed out. Turn off the saw when you have completed your work. Don't leave pieces on the saw. Directions of using bench drill. Always check the sharpness of the drill, and tie it to the drill chuck steadyingly. Never turn on the machine without removing the drill chuck key from the drill chuck while drilling. Don't force it in the way the drill is burned or broken. At the holes the depth of which is much, assure that the chips are discharged by drawing the drill back at intervals and the drill gets cold. Tie the work piece to the platform steadyingly. Always use the shelter of drill protector. While drilling, protect your hand from the drill and especially from the outlet mouth. When you turn off the switch, don't try to stop it immediately by holding the drill chuck in your hand. Directions of using spiral jet grinding. While working, don't wear necklace, wristband, etc. accessories, necktie, long-sleeved and large dresses, and turn the sleeve of the dress inside. The processed part should stand steadyingly while working. Otherwise, tie it to the clamp. Check the cable and plug strength of spiral grinding motor. Be careful that the grinder is tied uniformly, compressed with its key, without crack and dry, and the grinder case is in its place. Grinding mouth won't be more than 180 degrees. While maintaining and repairing it, machine is never operated. Spiral is a sparkling device. If there is any burnable and inflammable material in the area used, clean it and take the necessary safety measures. Take precautions that the sparks and flashes leaping while working won't come to the one working in the environment. Check that the on-off switch is durable. Use the grounded electric appliances. Grinding and cutting is used at spirals. Don't misuse the spiral grinding according to the type of it. Unplug the spiral grinding from the jack after working is completed. Won't leave the spiral on the ground. Lift it to its place after working is completed. The cycle it will operate with is written on the grinding. Spiral's cycle must less than the cycle of grinding while working with the cutting spiral. Spiral should come to the material that will be cut vertically, and it mustn't be inclined while cutting. In order to increase the cutting, don't press the spiral on the part so much. Don't leave it on the ground unless the spiral grinding stops completely. Nobody should use the spiral other than responsible one when it is break time, or when the grinding requires to replace the spiral must be unplugged from the socket. Don't perform sharpening and grinding the spiral by getting it on the ground. Fix the part that will be grinded absolutely. Don't use the spiral with wet and oily hand or with gloves. While working with spiral, use protective toed shoes, face hood, glasses, assembler gloves, and ear protector. Spiral mustn't be operated lower than knees and above the head. Chuck key or other apparatus shouldn't be on the spiral. Furthermore, the following measures should also be taken during all the workings at metal sector in addition to the work health and work safety measures suggested in the previous pages. While working, the accessories like necklace, earring, watch, ring, etc. mustn't be used. They should be taken off before starting to work. Never use GSM telephone while working. If the worker has got long hair, hair must be tied up or collected in a protective hat, single piece fitted overalls while working.